Good day, everyone. This is another video from a Steve Adventure, and today we're going to be looking at what makes a great EDC knife. Now, of course, there is going to be lots and lots of comments, I'm sure, about what EDC means, but we all know, at least basically, that EDC is everyday carry. And of course, we're going to do this video in the style of Nick Chavez, or as a kind of a tribute to him, since we're learning a lot and having a lot of fun watching Nick's videos. We don't have a Batman mask, so we'll try to be careful about that. But you know, the hands inside, just going to be for a little bit of fun. In the background, we'll be using a little bit of technology here to instead of the printed sheets that Nick likes to use. So what makes a great EDC knife? Well, there are a variety of opportunities when it comes to EDC, and EDC being everyday carry. Now, if you're lucky enough to have a variety, or even a plethora of knives available to you, and you are using them in a rotation where, okay, I feel a little bit like I want an ugly knife with an enormous hole in it for no good reason, then I'm going to pick this one as opposed to a truly beautiful knife with a tiny little hole because I didn't need the thumb stud and frankly don't like it. So I might choose this one. That precludes the idea of EDC insofar as it is not an everyday carry. It's a someday carry, or it's a rotational carry. So for those of us in the knife community, I would like to suggest a new term that we refer to as my RC, or rotating carry. In my mind, the only rotation in an EDC would be when it rotates open, and then it rotates closed. But this, in fact, is my EDC. I carry this every single day, 7 days a week. If you're looking for something in my pocket, I'll have it. It's not a rotation. It makes sense that there would be things in a rotation, and so you may have other tools that you'd like to use, or if you have a rotation, just be honest about it. Let's refer to it what it is, a rotating carry, or RC. This is going to be about choosing an EDC, or if you like a variety, you may be choosing your RC. So what makes a great EDC knife? Well, there'll be a variety of questions. And just for the sake of argument, we'll jump down here and we'll look at blade shape. Now, this is a fairly exhaustive list, but may not be 100% complete. But you'll be able to see if you look closely, we've got the normal straight, clip points, drop points, spear points, dagger points, American Tanto and the Japanese Tanto, a kukri point, trailing talon, needle, sheep's foot, or Wharncliffe. These ones tend to be interchangeable a little bit, but you can see the sheep's foot's got a much steeper tip, where the Wharncliffe has a more curved design. And if you follow Blade HQ at all, you'll know that you can use these terms whatever you want, just say modified at the beginning. So a modified American Tanto may look a lot like a sheep's foot or a Wharncliffe. As long as you say modified at the front, people really can't criticize you too much. Although it is the internet, so just be ready. So a variety of shapes that I actually have in hand. Just a very traditional Swiss Army knife. Personally, I like that one very much. It's very slim, and if you're thinking about whether or not you want to carry a knife every single day, I would suggest this style of knife right out of the box. What I like so much about this one is it is one hand open capable. It takes a little bit of learning, but you're going to pinch it. So I've thumb nicked up into a pinch grip. I'm pulling the body of the knife down with my third finger, and then I go inside with my thumbnail, and push the blade out. Closing is very easy. Get all your fingers out of the way. One finger down, closed. It weighs almost nothing. It costs almost nothing. It's got a real nice slicey blade. It's not difficult to sharpen. And it's something that if you've got that in your slacks pocket at work and you pull that out to cut your steak, no one's going to look at you sideways. It's very, just not a scary knife. Other opportunities might be something that's very small. This one here has the ability, I've taken the thumb stud off. I hate lanyards personally, but this knife tends to disappear in the bottom of my pocket, and this is part of my EDC as well. If you don't really want to blow people's minds, but you just need a little cutty thing or something to lend, this can be really nice. The lanyard just makes it easier to find it in your pocket, so this one will sit in the edge of your pocket with the little black bear tooth lanyard hanging out, and you can grab it with the little finger. It comes out in your hand, out of the pocket, and two-hand open, two-hand closed. You'll start to see a theme in my EDC insofar as I'm a big fan of the American Tanto. Thank you, Lynn Thompson, for inventing it. It is a crazy powerful. And that one's not expensive and not too scary, but it is in the Tacticool family. When we're looking at shapes, you could also, this one's borrowed. Personally, this particular brand is not my thing. I don't understand removing a bunch of blade steel. Maybe it saves them money, but they're really, really expensive. And frankly, I don't get it. I can get incredible blade steel with much nicer handle materials for when we look at this knife with this blade steel and this handle material. It's in Canada between $60 and $100 more money. So I don't really understand that very much. But this one is a kind loaner from my son. And he's got a variety of tastes and good for him. So this one here, it's got the hole so you can open it two-handed if you like. Liner lock. You can get your Spidey flick on if you want to. This one I would be careful of. It's got a couple of things that I'm not a fan of. Personally, I don't like a liner locks very much because you'll see that something that I want to use later is in the blade path. The other thing that stands out about this one particularly is after I push the liner over, the blade moves very freely. You can see it moves very easily until it hits the detent. There's a detent on the spring, which I need then to overcome. So I'm going to push on the blade, see nothing in the way, and it's a finger guillotine. So you may or may not know somebody who's got one of these, has a variety of really nice cuts because they had something in the way after they closed it. So safety closing on the Spyderco. You put your thumb in the liner lock. See, my thumb is very high on the liner lock so that the edge of the meat of the blade comes down and touches my thumbnail so it stops. Then I get everything that I want to use later out of the way and it closes pretty nicely. This has got a 4-way pocket clip for people that really can't make up their mind before they order their knife. I can't imagine why I would want to carry the knife in this position. Maybe it works better for lefties. I've never been left-handed, so I can't say. But having all these holes drilled in my mind just seems to be like a lack of commitment. You know, this is kind of maybe the knife for somebody who, that's never been married. I really just can't. They don't buy a car. They only lease them for a year or so because they can't make a long-term commitment. But in any case, if you're into that style, good for you. If you like, ugly knives, fantastic. Not for me. But there's a couple of opportunities when it comes to EDC. You might need something that's got a little bit more reach, but it's also less expensive. So in the $12 Canadian, $9 American, you get into a ring lock. These are not expensive, but it's got a really nice handle. There's lots of extra reach. If you need to really reach up high, I've used this in the grocery store, for instance. It gives you another almost 6 or 7 inches at least of reach to be able to reach up on the high shelves and flick off the paper towel boxes or whatever you need to be able to reach. It's got a really comfortable handle. It's fairly innocuous and can be opened with 2 hands but closed with the one. The ring back, this is your spring, so you're lifting the ring in order to release the blade. Now you can see that I'm pushing down with my hand and it locks it up, makes it harder. So you're really going to have to push away with your handle and lift the ring lock and then push the blade down. That seems like a lot of work. So why wouldn't I just put my finger through the ring this way, flip it upside down, then I push with my thumb and my fingers, lifting with the ring. The whole thing rolls over, one hand close. And again, these are not expensive. It's got really nice steel. This is the cold steel Kudu. I've brushed it off because I didn't like the graphics, and then brushed everything else because the brush looks so good. And other opportunities, well, you might like something a little bit bigger. Generally, I like a large EDC as well as a small. So one for little jobs, not to scare people, or a loaner. And then something if you really need to do some cutting. You'll see once again that I'm in the Tanto family. The finger grooves are nice because they give you that extra security. So if I'm back here, I've still got almost a guard to keep from sliding forward. Then I've got a secondary position. I can be way back here if I need to. It fits nice in the reverse grip, and so forth. So there's a variety of opportunities. So size is also an issue. If I'm working in an office environment, that little SAK is going to be much nicer. But if I need something, this little knife is never going to do what the big knife can do, and most of the jobs the big knife can do, the little knife can do. The best knife for survival is not necessarily the knife you have with you. I'm going to have a very difficult time making a shelter with that. I'm going to have an intermediate time making a shelter with this, and something larger might be even better. So size is important. What do you feel comfortable carrying? What's really going to get it done at the end of the day? And frankly, most of us, all we need are something that is domestic flights in Canada legal. It's going to be legal in, I believe, in almost every state in the USA, which is something that's under 3 inches. This one is actually under 3 centimeters. So just a really nice tool. We'll talk about steel for a minute. This is not a fancy steel, but cold steel does a great job with their heat treatment. So buy something that is reputable. You don't have to have S35VN in order to be really happy. The simpler steels are very easy to sharpen. They're very easy to manipulate. You'll see this one here. We've gone to the trouble to really scanty out the edge just to make it a little easier to sharpen. It's a little slicier as well. So steel's not a big deal for an EDC. It's just about making sure that it will cut enough as you feel you might need to before you can get home and sharpen. And again, lock types. So there's a variety of lock types. We'll look at them briefly here. You can see we've got frame locks like the Spyderco. So your nice bits are in the blade path. You want to be careful about making sure you don't get chopped by yourself. Button locks are usually on autos, so that can be fun. Ring locks like on the Opinels, and so on. Slip joints, everybody knows a slip joint. There's no lock there, there's just a detent that lets you know the blade is all the way home. And this one has no blockage to you closing it, it's just a lot of friction. It's well done. Axis locks, or anything with a sliding button that is a through and through button on both sides. Compression lock, which is essentially a liner but in the back. I'm sure that's really convenient to operate. That's a little tongue-in-cheek there. Personally, I like the lock backs because we can talk about lock strength. So this little knife here with the grivery handles will hold 120 pounds of hang weight out here in the hole before the lock fails. At least 120 pounds. Now, why is that important? Well, they say, experts tell me, I'm not an expert, that if you were to hold the knife in a downward grip and plunge it into whatever material, that you can generate 180 pounds of force. So this knife will almost take all of the average person's capability in force and not close. Oddly enough, this knife here holds the same amount of hang weight as my former, much more expensive everyday carry. I'm so glad I got rid of that. So why do I need a knife that will hold 200 to 400 pounds out here in the lanyard hole on the lock strength? Well, it is nice to know that there's no way I can generate enough force to overwhelm that lock. Now, I don't need it. If you don't need it, then get yourself a nice liner lock. They generally don't have the same strength. They're easy to operate. They're more fidgety, so that's good fun, I guess. As long as you keep the jelly filling inside your donut, you're not bleeding, then I guess that could be fun. But for really no more money, why not get a lock that if you were needed to slide down a hill, if you needed to climb up some sort of something where you'd had to plunge your blade into, which is a thoroughly unrealistic scenario. But I can plunge that into whatever and hang on the lock knowing that it won't close. Isn't that just a nice thing? Or in the words of Nick Chavez, that's a beautiful thing all day long. So I can get all that extra strength. Why would I want it? Well, I'm buying a knife that's got more steel than I hope I'll ever need. It's got a much nicer handle material than I'll ever need. It's much more durable than I'll ever need. But why not get a lock that's stronger than I'll ever need it to be, rather than a lock that might be okay as long as that's not really too much in a pinch, or a lock that's dubious but fun and classically cool and cheap and maybe scary. So there are a lot of things to think about when it comes to EDC. What blade shape do you like? What lock system makes sense to you and appeals to your design aesthetic? But really, everyday carry is about every time you take it out, does that knife put a smile on your face? Now for me, this knife definitely puts a smile on my face. It's got the right size, it's got the right shape. I love the fact that it's all blacked out and tactical. One of the things I like about that, practically speaking, is if you need a big tool, it's not a big flashy tool. So it doesn't have that presence that a real long, shiny, slicey blade does. Oh my goodness, that steak must have owed you money. No, it's pretty easy. So having said all of those things, when you're picking your EDC, you'll be thinking about things like blade shape. Pick a blade shape that you think is cool. It's going to do the kind of work you want it to do and that you think is cool. And again, you're going to carry it every day. And then pick a liner lock or some sort of locking system, frame lock, lever lock, slip joint that makes sense to you. And then if you care about steels, you can do a little bit of research, but you'll find that most knives, based on price, are going to be in really nice steel. Finally, all of the knives that I've looked at here are in some sort of stainless. Stainless steel, in my mind, is kind of a joke. A blade doesn't need to be stainless because it's going to be in your pocket every day. So if you get wet, you're probably going to get dry later. Dry out your knife like you do your clothes. Corrosion's really not going to be a big deal. If you're working in the ocean or near the ocean, maybe. But again, you're going to change your underwear in the morning. Why not wipe your knife off with it before you throw it in the laundry? Well, maybe not with it, but you see what I'm saying. A steel doesn't need to be stainless. It's really about just making sure that you're maintaining it, keeping it right. So, with all of that said, I hope that you will have a lot of fun picking your EDC. And if you decide you've got two that you've just really got to have, then just call it an RC and get on with it. There's no sense of dragging it out. In every case, I hope that you'll have a wonderful day and stay sharp.